Good morning, everyone. Everyone sitting comfortably? It gives me great pleasure this morning to be the representative of the fairly new Lions Club of Clarence Environmental to introduce to you our next keynote speaker, Deborah Tabart OAM, also known as the Koala Woman, the head of the Australian Koala Foundation, working with this organisation since 1988. Deborah works with government bodies, individuals and communities to advocate for a future where humans live in harmony with koalas and other wildlife and their habitats. And now that the koala is recognised as an endangered species, her advocacy is even more important and a wake-up call for the rest of us. She believes, as our group does, that there is a growing awareness that we need healthy, functioning ecosystems, animals and plants, to sustain all life. Everything is connected to everything else. Deborah Tabart, thank you.
Thank you so much. I did say, no, DG Robin, DGN3 Glennis, GMT National Coordinator, Anne, this is fantastic, Leo's, Lions partners and guests, conventioneers all. And Auntie Lenore's not here. Oh, yes, she is. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. I'm so thrilled to be here on a couple of reasons. One is it's just been a fabulous time, and it is hard to keep up with you all. I had to go to bed early last night, and I've only had one drink, so you'll be pleased to know, because I'm shocking if I've had more than one. So away we go. That's the end of the slides, Matt. If you could just start me at the beginning, thanks. I don't think I have to tell anyone the koala's in trouble. You all know that. What I'm hoping my presentation today will be about is how we can fix it, and maybe some of the threats that are making it happen that I actually think are relevant to you as Lions people who want to help the community. So, yes, and I've been there since 1988, and that's it, thank you. And what I absolutely believe to the core is that if you can save koala forests, you can save thousands and millions of other species. Now, when I first started, I've had a lot of threats in my career, mainly politicians, and because as you want to protect landscapes as large as the koala habitat, which is 20% of the East Coast, 20% of our continent, and pretty much from Cairns right round to Adelaide. So the industry says, God help us, do not do anything to stop us being able to do what we like. And it took a long time. And so I have actually written this book called The Koala Manifesto. And it's warts and all, really. Haven't been sued because I didn't name anyone, but I've had a lot of people. There is one chapter called Malevolence. So in the 90s, I really started to see how tough it was to protect landscapes. And I said to the graphic designer of my book, I want it to look like halfway between a Mao's Red Book, and you're all only old enough to know what that is, and also it's actually Che Guevara. The koala's been superimposed over Che Guevara and his gun. And the graphics in my book are hilarious, and so I used to meet with the graphic people, I'd waffle on, and then they'd come out and I'd go, yep, we're going to do it. And but I would encourage you, not to buy the book or anything, but just to go on our website, because in that it does describe what I think has to happen to our country if we're going to save us, number one. And I've chosen to stay in my job as the Koala Woman because I'm sure you can appreciate a lot of people have asked me to be a politician. Some people have even offered money for me to be a politician. I could not sit in that house the way it is now. I did work for Andrew Peacock during the Vietnam War when he was Minister for Army, and I think there was a military fellow here this morning. And a lot of my fierceness has come from that time because I was raised by generals in that time to be brave and courageous and very outspoken. But I also want to be like Auntie Lenore yesterday, to do this with love, Auntie. But it's very hard for me to take my warrior spears out because I just feel so angry with what I have seen and perpetrated on not only the koala but the environment generally, and the humans that have suffered while they defend. So in the brief moments I've met with the Clarence Valley girls, I'm saying to them, it is really important for you to act locally. But if you don't think globally, and your organisation does, you will not win. And like, you've only got to look at the news this morning. England, look at the storm, look at Brazil, look at the landslides. And I'm lucky enough in my emails every day to get pretty much every natural disaster in the whole planet. And so I really believe that we are not on top of that. I have been to Copenhagen in 2009. I watched everything that happened in Glasgow with great interest. And you know that Australia has signed up to not cutting down any more forests from 2030. 100 countries have done that. Can you really see anyone in this district stopping cutting down trees by 2030? And if you can, how? What are they going to replace it with? And that's why I thought this conference in Port Macquarie about the upscaling of recycling. We are now going to have to produce wood out of rubbish. We are going to have to completely think how we build our homes. And this is really beyond the brief of the koala woman, but I believe for the rest of my life I will be spruiking this. We have to change. And groups like you are inspiring to me. And I remember when I first learned the word service, through guiding, of course. I was a guide and a brownie and all that sort of stuff. But I was in Miss Australia in 1969 and we raised money for cerebral palsy at that time. And I really saw what communities were doing, and it's in my blood. I'm a fundraiser, basically. And so I just admire what you've achieved. I really do, after all these 100-year-old. I mean, it's incredible. But I want you to think that I'm just not the koala woman. I suffer enormously from the bats. And after we were at Sanctus Brewery the other night, that fly-off, I actually was texting Dr. Marcus, who's the bat woman. I was going, oh my God, you should see this fly. And she's like, where are they? Where are they flying? What way are they flying? So I want all of you to let me know where those bats are, because I know that the bats are causing, the politicians always want to be cruel to bats. They are one of the sweetest mammals you will ever meet in your life. You'll be pleased to know that if you give a little bat a piece of fruit, he will turn its mouth to the side while it eats. And they are so sweet, but they are the only things that keep our forests going. So if you obliterate the bats of this world, you can say goodbye to us. And they have been demonised by Dracula. There's a bat. Oh, it's so scary. And all our kids who are scared of a cockroach and all that sort of stuff. So time for this nonsense to absolutely go. The taipan there, we know they're dangerous. But the thing is, if we do not have biodiversity, we lose so much in our souls and other things. So in 1992, 4 years into the job, I said, I need a map of koala habitat. I want a map. And then all the governments were going, oh yes, Deborah, we've got them. Well, they didn't. So I employed a whole stack of scientists to create that map, and I thought it would take like 5 years, and I don't know how much money. But we finished that map in 2018, took 23 years, and $20 million, all privately funded. So I am absolutely privileged to say that no one can silence me, because I don't take any government money from anyone. And that was a deliberate strategy by me right from the start. I've seen too many charities lose their way once governments start giving them money. Our latest thing is the Koala Kiss project, which is to basically try and link every single habitat between Cairns and Melbourne. And we have the community absolutely so excited about that, for tourism, for their own land, for all sorts of things. And I love the idea of the koala kiss. I was on radio and someone said to me, what do you mean, Deborah? And I was like, well, you imagine kissing those habitats together. And if you look out there, if you're a koala and you've got to walk from one bush to the other, can you really make it? And often the time they will be exhausted because they've got to walk through a cane field or get knocked over by a dog or a car or something like that. So it will be important for the koalas, but it will also be important for our country. And I don't know if any of you have walked the Camino, I want to call it the Koala Camino. And Camino actually means spiritual journey in Spanish. But imagine if we had tourists from all over the world starting in Cairns and walking down through this Great Dividing Range in this incredible country, dropping into people's homes, picking up cups of tea, doing all sorts of stuff. And it's probably the first time in my whole career that I feel like government's right behind me and that I'm going to watch me fly. Because we, the people, can do this without them. Because all they're going to do is try and stop us. And I don't think they can stop this. So at the moment, we're working out the scientific process to achieve that objective. It'll be an algorithm of some sort, and I think it's in my emails at the moment because we'll get a consultant to actually say, this is the algorithm you need in our data. So you can imagine, for $20 million worth of data, we have, I can't actually tell you how many gigabytes it is, but it's massive. So we can just move all this data and work out what are the points to link and what are the points to buy. So imagine, I've got one lady who wants to give us $1 million to buy some land. Which bit do we pick? Now, in America, they have a thing called revolving funds, where a woman like that gives us $1 million. She wants to keep it in her name until she dies. She has to trust me and my organisation that we will then, when she dies, not sell it to some jerk who will destroy it. Imagine the paperwork in this. Imagine the tax and the stamp duties and all this. So we will have a full-time KISS coordinator in July of this year. I want the job, but I really think it's a 30-year job. And I want that person to just be able to communicate to landholders, to really understand the money that will need to be moved around. This woman is in her 80s. She's Churchillian. She says, do not make my money go into a black hole, Deborah. So I can promise you that I have people putting and pulling me to account. Even our founder, even though I'm the chair of the board now, he will still ring about once a month and just say, what are you up to? So accountability is everything in an NGO like ours. I believe that will happen. I know it will happen because I'm there to make it happen. And as part of, everyone is going, well, Deborah, you're getting old, you need to sort of think about succession. I will be the koala woman till the day I die, and I have cut myself into 6 different bits of all the things that I feel I'm good at, and I'm replacing me with 5 other staff, but I will stay on to drive our government's spare for the rest of my life. So the Great Koala Trail, I hate that term, I hate the name. I want it to be called the Koala Camino. So we'll see. I might win. Now, I just wanted to throw in a beautiful koala for you because you cannot not love them. And this particular fellow is Sebastian. And he was, I think, part of our adoption program, but you have to know that after all this time, I have met some amazing koalas. He's one of them, and he's very, very handsome. And the girls think so too. And I've been bitten by them. I've been on the Today Show, and I've got this dear little koala in my arms, and the next thing they grab your eyebrow and you have to start screaming. I've seen them being yanked out of trees in research projects. I'm actually against radio collaring animals, and I'll tell you a whole range of disgusting things I've seen. If we radio collar an animal, which we do very rarely now, because you don't need to, we see it every day, so we know where it is. And one of the people that I annoy the most is a researcher who has this sexy, oh, well, the koala got a collar and it talks to a satellite and whatever. And in fact, the collars are moving, but the koala is in a snake, in a python, because where they've put the koalas is often where the snake catchers put all the large pythons. So I believe it's time for us to leave these poor animals alone. to live like they did at white settlement. Now, I've had a lot of elders in my time, in my 30 years as I've roamed this country, tell me about what it was like before white man came. I believe there were millions of koalas. And in this book, there is a disgusting photo of a lady wearing a koala coat in Melbourne. It is the most ghastly thing you'll ever see. And the thing is, what I think Aboriginal people knew was that koala skin doesn't tan well. And so really most of their ceremonial gear is a kangaroo or possum. And also most of the elders that I have spoken to said that the koala cries when you hurt them. And they're not good eating. So by and large, the koala was in large numbers, so much so that we have the manifests of 8 million skins that went to London and New York between 1890 and 1927. And I believe that's half of what actually happened. So I really believe there were koalas like in the 15 to 20 million. Can't prove it, but I've got plenty of documents that showed that 4 times what went to market was shot and often were rotting outside councils. And there's a ghastly document called Black August on our website, an honours thesis that describes all that. And it's harrowing to read. They often would skin them alive and put them back up the tree. So the immense cruelty that we perpetrated on this species, this dear little thing, doesn't eat any crops, doesn't trample any villages, doesn't do anything, just brings billions of dollars to Australian shores in tourism, is the perfect person for me to partner with, animal to partner with, because I believe the koala is the only species that will be able to bring about great legal changes and also compassionate changes, because it's hard for people to think, I want to protect the brown snakes, because we all want to do that, don't we? So the manifesto, I can encourage you to read it. There is funny. If you can work out which some of the politicians who've tried to be nasty to me, I'll give you a free book. But the lawyers said, don't name anyone, Deb, just don't name them. But I did have one lobbyist come to me and took me for lunch for 3 months. And then he was quite nice, actually. And I said, look, I'm sick of this. Why are you here? And he said, well, they want to know what it'll take for you to go away. And so I leant across the table and he thought, wow, she's going to go, what, And I said, I want lots of gum trees and grey, fluffy things in it. And so that was the last of him. I think it's really important to know that my levels of respect for government that I had when I worked for someone like Peacock and in that time, and I was young and impressionable probably, but I feel there was ethics and I feel there was a lot of people in there that had come through communities, been elected by the communities, and they represented the communities when they were in there. Now, I feel that we are electing people that have been put in front of us by apparatchiks or people who have come through the political system. And dare I say, at the risk of offending, we vote for them. What is wrong with us? So we have to, and I don't know if any of you know, but in 2016 I took my donkey on the road and asked people to vote for her. And if you want to find some very, very interesting footage, Matilda, it was Vote 1 Matilda, and so we encouraged people to draw her ears on and donkey vote. Because that in 2013, you might be shocked to know, 800,000 people had either donkey voted or informally voted, which was a shocking thing. And it was actually my brother who said to me, let's put a donkey on the road. And I went, oh, you're mad. And then I thought, well, I'm mad too, so I'll do it. And so we've got all the footage from that. And as we took Matilda, Lulu was her name, Matilda's her stage name, we went round the country to 60 different seats. And we had people interviewed by her about the problems. And I just saw Australia that I didn't recognise. Motels filled with battered women. Kids lying in the streets on drugs. Big fishing trawlers going past Bega and stuff like that. And then, I could go on. You all know our country is changing. And I don't think that even a group as unbelievably dedicated as yours can pick up the pieces of what industry is doing to our country. And so I'd really caution you in your threat assessments that Anne wants. How big a job are you prepared to do? And how big an army do you actually need to do this? Look at the army having to be called in through these incredible things. So, I do not think I'm Moses, but I have written 10 commandments in my book. And the first one is that I want a Koala Protection Act. I want a national mapping standard, which is already there, and I gave those maps to Minister Lay just after the bushfires, and she now is allocating $10 million to create her own mapping standard. I want to call for a moratorium on any native forest, and that will have to become law by 2030 anyway. I want a royal commission so that I can name those people, because I have seen a lot of corrupt people in my career. I want a Bill of Rights for the environment. I want every single Australian river to run free. And I know you might think that's naive, but if we don't have our rivers completely unfettered, we're going to have foul creek systems for the rest of our children's lives. I want every tributary and river system to be fenced from stock right now. And if that isn't going to bring jobs to communities and all sorts of stuff, of course it will. I want all the floodplains of Australia to be protected by law and never to be built on. And I want all industries to harvest their own water. And I want the cancellation of all historic water rights. And you can probably throw me out of the room now, but I have seen people allocated water that they should never have been given. There is one industry that has just been allocated 1.5 gigalitres of water per year for a project. And I never really name companies because, again, I don't want to. But on my maps, I have pretty much every project that takes water out of the Great Artesian Basin. How many people can tell me what 1.5 gigalitres looks like? Correct. It is 1/3 of the Sydney Harbour water every year out of that basin. Now, if you take 10 major projects from industry, that is probably 5 Sydney Harbours coming out of the basin every year. It's a hidden threat. I'm obsessed about water. So in 2019, in May, I went west out to Coonabarabran, Pilliga and stuff, which I adore and love. Not one river system, including the Namoy and the Mookai, had a drop of water in it. And you could tell that it was going to burn. You could just tell the fires were coming. Because I have eyes and ears all over the country of people telling me the understory's dying. Even in my own property, our aquifer was down 30 metres during that drought. This will come again. So I want a Koala Protection Act. I will get it before I die. It should be a no-brainer, because if anyone says the koala doesn't deserve it after, you know, the frantic histrionic behaviour of the world when the koalas were hurt, because I've had to face this argument all my life, you know, well, Deborah, why are you singling out the koala because, you know, whatever? Well, you know, they're worth about $3 billion a year in tourism, so is the reef. These are the two icons of Australia for tourism, and you are letting them both be endangered. So on my Twitter the other day, I said, well, Minister, well done, 2 icons on the endangered list. Now, I don't know whether you believe in global warming or climate change or whatever, but what we have to agree on is that we have got changing weather patterns, have we not? Massive, massive amounts of water coming down at once. In Brisbane, where I live, I knew the developers who were building those housing estates were not putting infrastructure to take that water away. So as soon as you get rid of grass and put it into concrete, you have enormous amounts of water. So all our cars are getting killed, you know, in car parks that should never have flooded in the first place. So the infrastructure, and that's what Bolsonaro's now going, oh, you know, this looks like a war zone. Well, you created it, honey, and you're whacking the Amazon, you know, like there's nothing to do, which is the lungs of this planet. So what do we think about political laws that are worldwide that says you can't do this. I know you won the election, but you can no longer do this to our planet as part of the collective good. So, I usually do my question times now, halfway through, so if I've annoyed anyone, you can say something to me, because at the end I usually just get out of there. But is there anyone who wants to ask me a question or challenge what I'm saying? Because I'm up for it. And I don't hold grudges either, at all. You know, I'm a dear little thing in here, really. Pardon? Yeah, well, historic water rights. I mean, how would you all feel if you said to the farmers around here, sorry, you can't take this water? There could be a process where that happens. We could say, are you really using that water to, best effect? So the people who are genuine and we know are the food producers of our country. And, I was supposed to go from here out to Gunnedah. They were going to have a celebration for the Shenhua mine finishing. And I've been on that committee over the last 15 years or out that way. Imagine if the Liverpool Plains had been damaged by a coal mine. And through that time, I have seen good and bad in every side, including myself, because it's just the grinding grooves of the Aboriginal people, the lack of respect for water, the misunderstanding about water. And it was the farmers who had to put up the science to the system who said, I'm going to take all this water, but there was no science that said it's okay. And no one really understands the aquifers of the Great Artesian Basin. I understand there's bladders all under the continent. Why would we affect that? And there was a wonderful woman called Mrs. Duddy who, she's formidable, and she had the big blockade you might have heard about. But she was saying to me, if you crack that aquifer open and those Liverpool plains sink down, they could become peat and potentially catch fire. Now, I don't know whether that's true or not, but innately I know it's true. And so it's time for truth. It's not time, and I've seen our own scientists backed up against other scientists, who's got the truth? Well, the truth is food, fresh water, blue skies. We have to protect that. That's the truth. And we now have to remediate all the land we've damaged. We have to say sorry to everyone we've hurt. And that will keep us going for the next 1,000 years while Mother Nature does her bit. So, we have worked out that the koala capacity of the forests. So in 1788, that's how much forest there was. And now there's only 20% of it left. And that blue line there is the extent of the historic koala populations. And so in New York City, I used to talk to the carbon traders like, hey, Deborah, we can buy all those trees and we can do the whatever. But on our website, there is a document called Koala, Carbon and Koalas Collide. Because let me show you how much carbon is in a tree. So in a tree that's 200 years old, there'll be 133 tonnes of carbon. And the minute you cut it down, even if it drops to the ground or even if you make it into a house, which the building industry will often say, well, the carbon's still in those woods. It's still on the planet, but it's not absorbing anymore. So then and I did plant 10 trees on my own property just before I went to Copenhagen in 2009. So we've actually been measuring my property. I've got 916 stems on my property and 12 that we planted for Copenhagen. Only 3 of them have survived and they've got 0.05 tonne. So if anyone thinks that we can do a carbon market predicated on tree growth, like the guy in the castle says, you're dreaming. I believe that there's soil that can, absorb the carbon fast. I think some of the mulga scrub can absorb it fast. But this is what happens. Everyone goes, I'm going to cut these down in another, a 15-year rotation or a 30-year rotation. And I've been around long enough to see we are not being able to replace the funds, and I've written about it in the manifesto. By and large, forestry is still making money out of forests that are intact and sometimes thousands of years old. I am a Tasmanian. I never realised it, but my first demonstration was Lake Pedder when I was 14, and then I did actually demonstrate at the Strawn, when Bob Brown did the big blockade for the West Coast. We, all of us, have got to speak out for the things we love. And I admire people like Bob Brown unbelievably, and I know that, he's against the coal mines and all sorts of stuff. But sometimes we have to listen to these elders, even if they're telling us messages we do not really want to hear. We have 2 properties. We never really wanted to own any properties, but over time we were given 2. This one, this was given to us in April of 2019. It's about 1,000 hectares, and it went up completely in smoke in December of 19. The koalas actually were so smart because one of the helicopters actually dropped a water bomb on the house that was on that property of the man who gave it to us next door, and all the koalas went to his house, sat there in the trees that were saved. And some of the local carers took that out. But the thing is, we've now got a PhD student on there looking at the regeneration, and it is incredible what's happening. Rock wallabies are back, koalas are back, some of the birds are back. Some of the areas were burnt beyond recognition, some areas, the fire was indiscriminate over this thing, and so those papers will be on our website if anyone's interested, but I think his PhD is going to help change the way we think about fire as well and regeneration. The other one is Quinlan's, Mr. and Mrs. Quinlan's. Mr. Quinlan's was not well, and they suicided together and left their whole property to us, which was a huge, huge thing for us as an organisation. But it's only 100 acres, but it is bordered on the Mapleton National Park. So for the next 80 kilometres, there's huge bush. And so we now have a full working research station there and long-term plots. So scientists around the world want a systematic assessment. So we've allocated 25 hectares, about 4 or 5 sites where we can measure carbon, we can measure the size of trees, we can measure what's happening. We've had it now for 10 years. We have we plant trees, but we also now have started weeding, and the weeding has been amazing. We get 10 to 1 for the weeding versus the tree we plant. And we've now, the guy who's doing the PhD at Little Oakey, Derek, he's there now. He is just fantastic about botany. So we took him to Quinlan's. There are trees coming up that have not been seen on that property for 120 years. And there's one of them is called a celery top, and it just is boom, and especially with this rain. So we're very excited that we're watching and documenting and seeing what happens. And, you guys know this, you plant trees and you do whatever. But if you look at Quinlan's on the map of the catchment area of the Sunshine Coast, it looks like a Smartie. So our neighbours, some of them are cattle breeders, some of them are greenies, some of them whatever. So learning how to be in harmony, because when we got the property, I couldn't actually stay there because it was, pretty tough. So I was staying in the local pub, and every time I'd go down to the pub, for a beer or dinner, they'd go, "Oh, the koala woman's here, better be careful," whatever. And so there was this, what are they going to do? Are they going to take over the district, and stuff like that? But in fact, because I'm posh, I like to have posh lunches. So I had all sorts of beautiful posh lunches, and the local bakery, catered everything. The pub comes out and caters for all our events because Quinlan's is now cost positive. I don't have to worry about anything. My managers are there on our dime, no one else's dime. We don't even take money from council anymore because we find that they come in and go, "Well, you haven't got rid of that lantana, Deborah." And you go, "Yeah, well, get your boots on, honey, and come out and do it yourself." And and the morning glory, they're obsessed about morning glory, but it's actually coming from the national park. So I say all this on radio all of this on radio because I know I'm telling the truth, because I've seen it, I've experienced it. I have tried extremely hard, except with Matilda, but it was a donkey telling people how to vote. I believe in democracy so much, and I really believe, honestly, that our children don't know what it means. I don't think we're having enough discussions at our dinner tables. Who are you going to vote for? This is what I think. Those discussions are no longer happening because people are not sitting at the dinner table anymore. There's a whole range of things that are affecting this, in my view. And my grandchildren just think I'm a witch, which is great. Because I think that we're losing the ability to parent our children. I don't believe our children should be our friends. I think we are being asked to be their mentors and their guides and their elders. And I don't tell anyone how old I am, but I want to be an elder, but I don't think I am that yet. I want to have a few more years of being a bit more snarly. And so one of my donors, he contacted me after I sent this out on our website. I do not want you to vote for a dill this election. And if you have a dill in this electorate, don't vote for them. Even if you have to donkey vote, even if you have to just make the point to them, you are not good enough to represent me. And they're not. And if they're not, see, I drive my own personal local politicians nuts. Do you deserve my vote? And they go, oh, yeah, well, great, and yeah, well, don't put that road there, because we don't need it as humans. We don't need another road by and large. By and large, we need regeneration. We need to stop the damage. We need to not pork barrel money into all sorts of places. We need honest politicians that aren't so worried about what's happening to them. And I'm not putting a spin on that in 1971 that there was all these lovely people in Parliament. But the old Parliament House, everyone was looking cheek to jowl in that room. So even if you were going to lie, someone was looking in your eyes. Look at the Parliament now. It's these huge big rooms. Everyone's sort of secreted away. They've got their apparatchiks looking at the polls and all that sort of stuff. You need to be the polls. You need to make the local members feel very anxious, because they love the gig they get, don't they? They love it. Have I offended any politician in here? Yes, there's a couple. There was one yesterday, anyway. But the thing is, they have to be called to account. I run a charity. I have to be accountable to all of the resources of the country that says, how are you spending your money, Deborah? Where is it going? All that sort of stuff. Where did you get it from? These are the things that I think are being taken away from our society right now, in secrecy at all levels of government. And, for the next 5 or so, 10 years maybe, I want to just roam this country encouraging people not to vote for a dill. And my graphics people have said that there's the beetroot party, the gherkin party, the sausage party and the dill party. And it gives me enormous pleasure so you can start thinking, well, he does run the barbecue party, there's no question. Or she, because the girls are as good as. So I know that we have to change, and the only way we change is by us changing internally, which is what Anne said. You have to look at your futures. You have to listen to the elders. You have to bring the young ones in. They have to start determining values. And I know I've had to change my values for my grandchildren's values. I listen to them and I try and take on board what they're saying. But if I think it's nonsense, or I think that when they're 25 they'll think that was nonsense, they have to hear that. But I don't think children are as resilient as we were. I really don't. And so I think they have to have this relationship with us. I was so embarrassed that I'd forgotten my tartan, but I did have my mum's Cairngorm on. But you might be interested to know there's a couple at Gunnedah that have made a koala tartan, and it has been approved by the Scottish Tartan Association. So that's it there. And on our website it shows, so the grey is for the koalas, obviously, the green for the trees, the pinks for their little hands and their nose. And then I put my tartan beside it because I'm a proud Moffat, and I think the Scottish blood in me does make me feisty, and they were Highlanders before they came down to Moffat and became sheep farmers. And I wished I'd had the koala tartan on last night, because for someone to actually do that, isn't it? For this group to make this tartan, and they're being sold in the Gunnedah, whatever. This is a beautiful thing to do, and we actually raffled one of these, and I think a lady in Australia won it, but the whole world was buying those tickets. They just were enthralled with it. So the koala's got some magic, it really has. So this is my koala army. And if you go on the Koala Army website, there's a page on our website. We've had the army for a long time, and I'm the only person who knows how many members we have, and there's a lot. And those people email politicians. I don't tell them what to say. I feel we have a little koala called Urban who says whatever, and he has a whole lot of beautiful comedy-type animals that speak for those animals, magpies. I think you will find it very humorous. But I do believe that we have to develop an army-like mentality. I think that we have to think of ourselves in the 1930s facing a huge uncertain future with climate change, with what is going to happen to our country. And I think we have to go into an area of preparedness. And again, for that little bit of me that I'm leaving for my job, all those other people will do the jobs that I have to relinquish. I want to encourage people to be really prepared for what Mother Nature is going to do to us, is currently doing to us, and will do to us in spades in the next 20 years if we do not reduce our emissions and get our levels down to 1.5. Because I've spoken to the scientists and it is terrifying. And I don't want to go to work every day not believing we can do it, because that is what drives me. I believe what I've seen in this last few days, this immense commitment to ceremony, immense cooperative behaviour, the children bringing the flags in. These are so important, and I'm just so humbled by having been to see it here. And I'll thank you very much. Thank you. Goodies. Oh, I've got the same as you.
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Deborah. Who is going with Deborah to walk on the koala Camino? Everyone? We have to.
Yeah. Well, the first
Why not? Let's know when it's starting.
Well, the first pilot one will be between Noosa, which is where our one property is, and the other one's Toowoomba. So it's only like 4 hours in car. So that'll be probably first thing next year.
Let me know, and I'll let everyone else know.
Yeah, I'll lead it. I promise.
Yep. I'll be second in command.
Oh, you can be in command. I'll be behind drinking.
No. We can have a big toast at the end. We have lots to think about here. And right through today's keynotes and yesterday's keynote speakers, one major thing has come up, and that's change. Right through with everyone. So we have to grab it and run with it, regardless. Otherwise, as Lions and as people of Australia, we're going to be left behind. So Deborah, thank you so much. And I know you've got a very busy life, but lots to think about, and we need to grab it, think about it, and do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.